This video is for students looking for some modeling of a few strategies for approaching stimulus-based multiple choice questions. The procedure and skills practiced in this video are applicable to any of these questions, but for the purpose of this video, we will be using resources from Day 17 of Unit 4 in the United States History curriculum, which focuses on the question, how did Prohibition and the Scopes monkey trial reflect the cultural tensions of the 1920s? You've probably seen a lot of multiple choice questions as a student, either on tests or quizzes in your classes, on Regents exams at the end of a course, or even on the PSATs or the SATs. Stimulus-based questions are similar except for one major difference. You are given some sort of source that the question is based on, which they call a stimulus. It can be a map, a short passage, chart, graph, or image. The model you see in front of you is a poster from the early 1900s. And this question is based on it. There are lots of different strategies out there for how to do really well on questions such as these. However, many do have a lot in common, but sometimes the order that they want you to do them in might be a little different. But really, virtually all of them want you to analyze and read the stimulus, whatever it is, then annotate the question prompt looking for keywords that signify the topic as well as the skill that you're going to be demonstrating. And before you even look at the 4 possible multiple choice responses, try to predict in your mind what you think the proper answer or the correct answer would be. Then take a look at the possible answers and choose the best one. And sometimes it does pay to try like an elimination strategy to really narrow it down. Then you should be in a really good position to select the correct one. Also, just so you are aware, the first part of the new U.S. Regents exam is comprised of all stimulus-based multiple choice questions. And if you took the global Regents already, you do have some prior experience with these type of questions, but it's not going to be exactly the same. On the U.S. test, each stimulus will have between 2 and 3 questions, and there will be a total of 28 in that first section. You can expect the questions to ask you things about the context of the stimulus, how it could be used or applied to the study of history, its causes or its effects, or even what outside event or issue is associated with or similar to. As I mentioned earlier, this model will be using a resource from Day 17 of Unit 4, and it is actually going to be this stimulus and this multiple choice question that you see in front of you. But remember, they appeared at the end of a lesson about Prohibition, so it is expected that students do have some background knowledge going into this question. If you are viewing this video apart from that particular lesson, it is understandable that the content might be unfamiliar to you, but just remember that you are viewing this more as a model of the procedure and techniques than to learn about that historical time period. However, it also does show the importance of having some background knowledge when taking an assessment with these types of questions in it. So let's take a look at our first model. I'm going to start by analyzing the image. And to do this, I'm going to rely on the see, connect, and infer approach. So I can see that down here where the sourcing information is, the title is given as Close the Saloons, and it was made between 1914 and 1918. And just in the interest of time, I'm just going to paste all the things that I saw when I did this, but I am going to go through them with you right now. So moving on to the image itself, I'm going to analyze it by dividing it into sections so I don't miss anything. And in the first top section, I see that the words close the saloons are in big red letters at the top, and saloons is another word for bars. Then moving down, I see words that say, if you believe the alcohol industry does more harm than good, help stop it. And help stop it are in red letters. So just like the title, they really pop out. Then I see Strengthen America campaign also in red, and there's an address below it. In the background, I see a woman, what appears to be a woman wearing a white robe, as well as having a hammer in her hand, and it looks like she's about to strike a bottle. The label is covered, but based on the words that I just read, I can assume it is a bottle of some sort of alcohol. And lastly, I see 2 men in the bottom left, one looking up at the words, and the other is slouched over looking down. An inference I can make is that I believe the purpose of this poster is to convince or persuade people to support and or join this group and their mission to either close saloons or stop the sale of alcohol. And I came to this conclusion because the words in red seem to be action statements, and then it gives the name of the organization as well as their address, almost like they want people to show up for their meetings or something. Also remember that this question appears in a lesson, and let's assume that I just finished that lesson, which is about the temperance movement and prohibition, which lasted in the United States from 1919, when the 19th Amendment was passed, until 1933, when the 21st Amendment repealed it. In that lesson, we saw how during the Progressive Era, what started as a grassroots campaign to ban the sale, manufacture, and consumption of alcohol evolved into a nationwide movement with supporters in both the Democratic and Republican parties. They believed that alcohol was the root cause of many of the problems plaguing American society, and without alcohol, many of them would be reduced, if not disappear completely. So, a connection I can make between this poster and something else is that I bet this poster was from one of the temperance groups that sprung up all over the country that was lobbying or persuading lawmakers to make alcohol illegal and support the idea of prohibition. Now I'm going to take a look at the question, and in particular, I'm going to be looking for the topic of the question, which I'm going to circle, and the words that let me know the skill that is being assessed, which I'm going to underline. Well, since the question is, which of the following was a central cause of the phenomenon presented in the poster Close the Saloons, I'm going to circle Close the Saloons because that is clearly what the topic is about and the question is focusing on. And it's going to ask me to determine the central cause or causation. So I'm going to underline those words. Before even looking at the possible answers, I'm already brainstorming trying to connect what I know about the central causes with what I learned about this image during my see, connect, infer analysis. In particular, I'm thinking about what led temperance groups to promote the prohibition of alcohol in an attempt to address issues and problems plaguing American society, just like many other groups and individuals during the Progressive Era. But finally, I'm going to look at the options, and it is pretty evident that the first option, progressivism, looks pretty appealing, but let's look at the other three because you never really know if there's going to be an even better answer. Westward expansion, I can't really see any connection between that and this poster. Organized crime, it is related because we saw in this lesson how organized crime did grow after the start of prohibition. However, and this is something they do all the time, this is the opposite. This is an effect of the idea in this poster, not a cause. So it's a good thing we underline the word central cause to make sure that we're on the right path. World War I was from this general time period, but again, I'm not seeing any clear connection between that and this image, so it looks like progressivism was the best choice. So that was a model of how I would recommend you approach any stimulus-based multiple choice question. I would like to leave you with just a few reminders though. First, if you are taking the Regents exam or you're taking an assessment in your class that your teacher said would be based on the Regents, you will have between 2 and 3 questions for each stimulus. So it is totally worth the time to really analyze it like we did here. And second, don't forget to annotate the question as well. Then try to connect the topic and the skill to what you learned about the stimulus through your analysis. This will help you predict what the correct answer could be, which really does help when you're selecting the right one.